This is the creature we use for studying regeneration, called an axolotl. Hello, I'm Dr. Shafik, and I'm on a quest to uncover all of the medical marvels that nature has hidden from us. And one of those marvels pertains to a peculiar little salamander, or as they're known in the scientific community, axolotls. It means water monsters in Nahuatl. And of course, as a certified biology nerd, I've done my fair bit of research on these fascinating creatures, right? Just off the top of my head, I've studied their genome, observed their regeneration, and I think from that I've developed quite a fascination. So I know what I'm talking about. But when it comes to medical breakthroughs, whether you're just looking for a quick fix or something revolutionary, it is worth learning that axolotls aren't necessarily the same as other research subjects. And so without further ado, let's metaphorically dive into the lake as I uncover ways that axolotl regeneration is changing the face of medicine. When I was out there for the first time in the lab, living the researcher lifestyle on my postdoc, the first amazing thing that I noticed is that axolotls, and as it turns out no other vertebrate, insist upon regenerating almost any part of their body. Sarah, what do you mean by that? Well, here's how regeneration works in axolotls. We'll get into terminology later. In axolotls, the limb, where I might accidentally cut off during an experiment, don't worry, they're fine, is known as the regeneration site. When you observe the axolotl, you see a blastema form to regrow the entire limb. Nobody would ever believe it if they didn't see it. Or no, it's not just the limb, it's also the tail, parts of the brain, and even the heart. In humans is a little bit different because that same injury where I might accidentally cut myself and talk to the first aid station and ask them for some antiseptic, and they actually know what antiseptic is, would just heal with a scar. And this is usually denoted in medical records by the word healed. So the tissue immediately around that is scar tissue, and then normal skin, and then muscle, and then bone. And then I'm a little bit hazy after that. And then you get to your internal organs. And this is where those cross-species differences really take shape, or should I say regenerate, because there's one key rule. On the whole, axolotl regeneration tends to be more complete than their human counterparts. And the reason for this, as we all know, is that axolotls marginally out-regenerate humans. But it's also because axolotls are about a 40th the size of humans. And so they just sort of regrow things, in fact, perfectly. A tiny axolotl tank was where I first met my research subjects, and they were staying in a tank about the size of the studio, which surprisingly, given that I'm often dubbed science's finest regeneration expert, is not that big. And at the best of times, I don't like being in close proximity to amphibians, but being squashed in a lab with my future research subjects was the second most exciting experience of my life. And I know what you're thinking. Ooh, Sarah, what was the first? Being squashed in the elevator with them on the way up to the lab. But the next time we met in an American research facility, we sure did have a chuckle. At least I think we did. I couldn't hear them because they were on the other side of the room. You see, axolotl regeneration, like stem cells or gene therapy or CRISPR itself, are just bigger breakthroughs. I mean, they'd have to be, right? Especially given what we've discovered in this lab about the differences in regenerative capabilities. And of course, a limb is not the only thing an axolotl can regenerate. In addition to the limb, the tail, and in desperate times, the spinal cord, which should prompt nobody to ask me about the spinal injury incident of 2018, there is also the heart. And I know what you're thinking. Yes, Sarah, the human heart has separate chambers for oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. Well, firstly, that's not always true in all animals. And secondly, that's not where I was going with this. I was actually going to mention the regeneration capacity, because while in humans, heart tissue and the bottom of the heart are more or less permanent, this is often not the case in axolotls. To go from a damaged heart to a fully functional one, you often have to kind of step back because the bottom of the heart is regenerated just like the top. There's one thing to remember that's damaging it, but regenerating when the cells are dividing and growing, it could lead to an unintentionally hilarious TikTok video. In fact, I do have footage, but I can't show it on here because I get hundreds of complaints and an equal number of research proposals, so just take my word for it. Stem cells are of course found in many places and through much of our daily lives. but never more do I need them than when I'm studying regeneration. So because of this, it is worth remembering some of the key differences between human and axolotl stem cells. Don't take my word for it. Instead, listen to me from last year. It was once said by me in just a second from now that you can tell a lot about a species by the potency of its stem cells. And given its unparalleled record of boasting larger regenerative capabilities than everyone else, axolotls might fancy their chances of winning the my stem cells are more potent than your stem cells debate. But the truth is, and you might find this shocking, axolotl stem cells are indeed more potent. You can't talk about stem cells without talking about differentiation. Differentiation is the process that keeps the cells specialized like a docked plane. And the only reason I made an aviation sim there was to draw your attention to the miniature control tower I made from Petri dishes while I was bored. Anyway, there are several key differences in this department. In axolotls, the stem cells are ever so slightly more numerous and crucially more potent. This makes them sturdier and impossible to ignore. How do I know that? Because I was a grad student once. But whereas human stem cells, that is adult stem cells, are decidedly limited in potential, that's not always the case in axolotls. Sure, human embryonic stem cells, the ones whose potential looks like surprise scientists, definitely do have more potential. But adult stem cells, which are easily the more outgoing and competitive of the two, are limited due to the manner in which each species maintains its stem cell populations. There's also a difference in how they behave in the body. In axolotls, the stem cells remain more plastic throughout life, thus making it harder to lose regenerative capacity by aging. And the limited plasticity of human stem cells means that you can do this in theory, but it's not recommended. One of the biggest concerns for humans studying axolotls, aside from being forced to eat their food pellets, is the great human axolotl regenerative divide. In axolotls, regenerative capacity is categorized as nearly complete, while it's generally limited in humans. Moreover, axolotl regeneration operates on a cellular level frequency and humans on a tissue level. What does all of this mean? Well, let's just say that you want to use your human knowledge in axolotl research, but it doesn't run on the same principles, or is not dual applicable, or is incompatible with axolotl biology. In that instance, you'll need to run to the library to pick up some axolotl textbooks. An axolotl textbook will convert your knowledge from human to the biology of axolotls. In the event that your axolotl textbook doesn't come with a practical guide, be sure to also pick up one of these. This practical guide is magic. It allows you to turn your human biological knowledge into axolotl applicable knowledge. For axolotls visiting human labs, the same applies, but in reverse. A step-by-step guide or manual might also be needed to safely study axolotls in the lab. Both are widely available for humans and axolotls on Amazon. I'd say the most obvious difference between human and axolotl regeneration is the completeness. When I first studied axolotl regeneration, I couldn't believe how complete it was, and not in a Morgan Freeman type way. I mean, this was a salamander, I just mean it was regenerating, but in humans, you don't usually have that problem and or luxury because a significant amount of human injuries are either not regenerated or not regenerated well. This is a particular problem when you're squished in a lab with your future research subjects. As with many areas of life, regeneration is its own subgenre of human versus axolotl word differences. Take, for instance, the name that we assign to that helpful cellular process that helps you with your regeneration when you're injured or healing. In axolotls and much of the rest of the amphibian world, this process is known as epimorphic regeneration. This is the word we use for what humans might call wound healing or scarring. Also, whether it's situated on the limb or the tail, humans and axolotls also can't agree on what you call that area of the body that you regenerate. Upon regenerating axolotls, we usually opt for the word blastema. Please note that humans, just like patrons on my most recent secret stream, are divided on whether this should be pronounced blastema or blastema. Either way, humans will often call this area the wound site. More often than not, axolotls will call a regenerated limb a limb. Humans will call a healed wound a scar, while humans have about 100 words for a non-regenerating injury. Chief among these are cut, scrape, bruise, fracture, or burn. And finally, neoteny. This is something I've encountered far more in axolotls than I have in humans. This is a developmental process offered by axolotls in which you observe an axolotl to retain juvenile features throughout adulthood, but the use of neoteny might be confusing to some humans. You might think of neoteny, often pronounced neoteny, as a childlike appearance, a fine example of which is the character of Peter Pan from J.M. Barrie's Peter Pan novels that I somehow keep mentioning in my videos just by coincidence. That's it for this video. Let me know in the comments below some of the regeneration differences that you've encountered. I'm Dr. Sarah. You can follow me on Twitter at LostInTheLabUS, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel so that my videos don't get lost in the pond. Thank you to my patrons for literally making this video happen. If you would like to support this channel, you can do so today at patreon.com/LostInTheLab. Until the next video, goodbye.